Hi everyone. In this video, I would like to introduce variables and data types. Okay, let's look at some commonly used variable types and their declaration syntax. The first type is the integer. In the declaration, we start with the data type and followed by the variable name and then the variable's value. Okay, assigning the value is optional, so you can write it like this, or this, or like this. Okay, this is a simple way to declare a variable. First, specify the data type, and followed by the variable name, and optionally the variable's value. One thing to note about variable names: although you can almost name the variable whatever you like, however, they cannot start with a number and cannot include some special characters like @ or shop. Okay, and next is the character type. Similarly, in the declaration, we start with the keyword char, then the variable name, and finally the value. Since a character variable only holds a single letter, its value should be a single character. Following that, we have the string, which belongs to C++, so it requires us to include the string header. Okay, this allows us to store multiple characters like this. Okay, and next is the floating point number. The keyword is float, which allows the numbers with decimal point if calculation requires greater precision. A float type is ideal. This type is also frequently used in graphics and drawing processing. Finally, we have the boolean. The keyword is bool, which stores the result of a logical operation, so it has only two possible values, true or false. Okay, which can also be represented as 1 or 0. Okay, these are some of the most commonly used data types. Now, how can we output these variables? If we use std_cout for output, it is quite simple. Similar to when we output hello world, you only need to pass the variable name to std_cout for it to display. Okay. However, if we use C's printf function for output, we need to specify the output format. For example, to output an integer, we use %d. And followed by a comma and a variable name. On this slide, I have summarized the common variable types and their respective memory size, the scope each can represent, and the format specifiers required for printing them using printf. You can just skim through this table for a quick overview. One point to emphasize is that the range of variables often comes up in interviews, not by directly testing your knowledge of ranges, but to see if you have considered the possibility of variable overflow when designing algorithm. Okay? Additionally, while characters visually represent letters, in machine processing, there are still treated as numerical values, known as ASCII codes, with each ASCII code represented a specific letter. And next, I would like to introduce local and global variables, which are actually quite easy to distinguish. Okay, so if a variable is declared within a specific scope, like within the main function, it is considered a local variable. So what is a scope? It is simply the area enclosed by curly braces. For example, if I declare a variable outside of any scope, like declare an integer abc here, the variable will be considered global. Local and global variables define the lifespan of the variable, or more intuitively, the range in which they can be accessed. For instance, if I declare a variable inside the main function, we can only access it within the main function for calculations or processing. It cannot be accessed in other scopes. If you want the variable accessible throughout the entire program, you can declare it as a global variable. Alright, in this video, we covered common variable types, declaration syntax, and the difference between local and global variables. Next, I will introduce some operations with these variables. See you in the next video.